Great. Okay, we're back in session. The Board of Governors met in closed session. Mark, do we have anything to report that's reportable? Okay, we took no reportable action. Excellent. So we are back in regular session, and we're going to go back to the regular agenda to item 3.1, which is the first reading, the academic record symbols and grade point average withdrawal. Okay, it is a first reading and public hearing for proposed regulations related to academic record symbols, grade point average, and course withdrawal. The Chancellor and staff will now provide information on the item. Vice Chancellor, please, welcome.
Thank you so much, President Estolano, members of the Board of Governors, Chancellor Oakley. It's my pleasure to bring this item to you that's actually been being worked on for the past several months. And most of the heavy lifting on this particular item has been done by Dean Montemayor Lenz, who's here today. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge her and her hard work. So as the item in your packet explains, this particular proposal submits a recommendation to the Board of Governors for a new non-evaluative grade symbol. And so the rationale for this new grade symbol goes something like this. The Title V allows for the inclusion of non-evaluative grade symbols, and there's a list of them included in your packet. But one of the things that we've come to understand, especially with the many challenges that our students often have, is that the list of non-evaluative grade symbols really isn't inclusive enough to support all of our students' needs. And so in looking at our student situations, we're suggesting the inclusion of what's called an EW grade, an excused withdrawal. Because right now, if a student suffers, say, a job change, a major catastrophe like the fires that many of our students experienced, or any kind of life-changing event for which they have no control, their really only option is to take the grade in the course that they would have earned, or if there's enough time in the semester, to take a W. Both of those things punish the students for things that they can't really manage on their own. So the EW would allow students who experience any kind of those kinds of life-changing effects that they can't control to take the EW and not punish them in their grade point average or toward their academic progress by having to take a W. I can assure the board that this particular change has been vetted through the Academic Senate, through the 5C, through the admissions and records organizations. It's gone through several versions of changes, and we've arrived at the language that we are recommending for you to review today. The other thing that's really a key piece is that we are also recommending that the language include that the local boards also include documentation requirements for students, so that way the process is used only in those unique circumstances that would affect students in the categories that I just described. It would be remiss for me also not to mention that one of the populations that we noted as being affected by this particular situation are our incarcerated students, who are often transferred out of institutions where they are maybe in a learning program, in a college program, and with no control of their own, transferred to another incarcerated area that does not have an educational program, and they cannot finish, and then they are penalized. So one of the things that we're looking to do is address that situation with the EW, but also address students with a myriad of other situations that they can't control. So respectfully, we'd like the board's consideration to approve this change, and this is the first reading as part of the process toward that change.
Great, thank you. The public hearing on item 3.1, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 55023 and 55024 is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimony from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Vice President Epstein, do we have any public comments?
We do. Julie Bruno and Rebecca Silbert.
President Estelano, board members, Chancellor Oakley. The Academic Senate is very much in support of this revision to Title V. We're actually really thrilled that it's come forward and there is a desperate need recognized to serve these particular student populations. It has gone through the 5C, the California Community College Curriculum Committee, which advises the Chancellor's Office on curriculum procedures and processes. It's come to the Academic Senate's Executive Committee, and I've been consulted numerous times with the Chancellor's Office. So we're really very pleased, and we'd like to thank our colleagues in legal for actually even identifying one more of another student population, those that may be subjected to an immigration action that is outside of their control. So we're really thrilled that we now have the ability to take care of our students when things happen to them that are outside of their control and that might affect their ability to continue on academically. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Silbert. I lead a nonprofit initiative with Stanford called Renewing Communities on currently and formerly incarcerated students. It is a time-limited initiative. We're here for 5 years with the goal of working with UCCSU, the community colleges, probation, parole, and on-campus students, and employment to change the fabric of the public higher ed system to reach these students. And I have to say that the California community colleges are doing the brunt of the work nationally. They're leading the country nationally, and I think everyone should be incredibly proud of the work that your colleges are doing for this student group that up until very recently was the last student group where it was okay to say you can get a GED, and the colleges are really doing an amazing job. We spend a lot of time, because we're outside of your system, identifying, I think choke points is probably the best way to put it in the guided pathways parlance, identifying the choke points and figuring out if there are avenues already existing in your system to fix them. And almost all of the time, it is the case that you have a pre-existing initiative or something that is there. This was a choke point that we identified about maybe 18 months ago and brought to the office. And I want to say that Laura Hope, Sally Montemayor-Lenz, and Laura Mattoon were amazing at responding to it. We came to them with this issue. They were the ones who came back and said it should reach more students. And I think that that's critically important and reflects the good staffing. For the students that we are concerned with in particular, I am sure everyone is supportive of learning, but I really want to call out how critically important this moment in time is. The face-to-face enrollment within California's prisons 2 years ago was 0. It's now well over 6,000. These are students that are coming out. CDCR releases 3,000 students a month. They're coming out with, they are the some but not all college. And they're coming out and they are ready and they're eager and they are incredibly motivated. And it has ramped up so quickly that they're getting the W's. And so right as they're at the cusp of being able to use your colleges to break that cycle of crime and poverty, they're starting with a check mark against them. This will fix that. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the Board of Governors? Board Member Volansky, followed by Board Member Haynes. Okay, woo, okay, we got a whole thing. All right.
Well, I'm definitely very supportive of this, thank you. But the question becomes, I have 3 questions. One is, the second reading will be in January, when we'll take action on this. When would this go into effect?
So from my understanding, it would go into effect once we conclude the process, which from a legal perspective, Mark, it would be 30 days after.
Okay. And I would ask that because of the board policies and procedures process that CCLC does, and many of us use, to let them know that this is Jane Wright. And the only other one is on page 35, and it says in 4F, notwithstanding the limits set forth above, apportionment will be limited as set forth. And I looked up the section, and I have to be honest, I didn't totally understand how the apportionment would be limited.
I think the extent to which it's limited is that those students are no longer considered to be apportionment bearing for the institution, but I can research the issue and provide you with an answer.
The only reason I asked is I thought that if you get beyond the drop date, because we're talking withdrawal, we're not talking about...
75%, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Haynes, followed by Board Member Walker-Griffin, Dalili, and then Fawn.
So I'm really appreciative of this particular potential change. I do have a question with regard to I understand that this particular item would go forward with students and the ability to use it. Is there any thinking or thought about students who recently may not be in the students in the future, of looking and auditing to see to what extent there was an extenuating circumstance, or is it going to sort of start once this gets?
It would start once it goes into effect rather than making it retroactive. Is that your question? We haven't really looked at that possibility. I think because of the local boards needing a requirement for documentation, that also, may create some challenges. And I think in the past that hasn't been the precedent that's been set, is that typically the changes go forward, not backward. So I think, what we've learned from this process is that, we can create a more equitable approach to grading symbols in this regard, but I don't really know what the mechanisms would be for us to make that retroactive.
Thank you.
Board Member Walker Griffin, followed by Board Member DeLilly, and then Board Member Fawn.
Thank you. I'm actually pretty excited to speak on this because it was actually my first year of college when I started at Diablo Valley College. I lost three grandparents earlier that year, and then later on my father passed away. And I was out of school for a couple of weeks, and later on I seen a bunch of other students at Contra Costa, which is closer to my house, have to leave school for various reasons. And sometimes it's kind of hard to explain a W, especially if it's something really personal. So I just wanted to say that I'm strongly in favor of this, so it can alleviate a lot of students of having to relive a burden that they don't want to speak about. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, and thank you, Alex, for sharing that. I know many students who've had similar experiences, and sort of the protocol is you take a W and then you explain on your applications for what reason you took that W. And not only is that taking up valuable space on your additional comments section, but it is also, a moment that most people don't want to relive. So thank you very much for that. I have 3 questions. Is this an appeal process for the student, or will they be applying for the EW, or how would that work?
It'll depend on the way that the local governing board decides to implement, but in all likelihood, it'll be a situation very much like a student would initiate for an incomplete.
Okay.
In which the student indicates to their instructor that there's some rationale for why they need the EW. There'll be some documentation required, and the local process will basically govern that.
Okay, and this has been articulated with the UCs and CSUs, I'm assuming, and they understand the...
It would be a non-evaluative symbol, so there'd be nothing, it won't count toward a grade point average, it wouldn't, figure into the student's academic progress. Yeah. So shouldn't cause a student any kind of impediment in that.
Okay, but on the transcript, it'll note EW. And then my last thing is, this is actually something that I've noticed a long time ago, but the system doesn't have a bereavement policy or grief policy dictated, and I know it's something I looked into previously, and it's noted through every single different district. Would the idea of having one unifying system-wide bereavement policy be something we should think about?
Well, I think there are a lot of different options that are available to students who, especially now that with the inclusion of this grade symbol, a student has the option of also talking to his or her instructor about an incomplete, which is another option, an IP, which is another possibility, and still the withdrawal, depending on the situation. So I think what this does is broaden the range of options for students and faculty to explore. And that way, the student has more than one way to try to take care of that issue. I think the issue with trying to make it uniform is, different districts are going to have different ways of approaching this. So what this does is help create a foundation to make that possible.
Thank you.
Board Member Fawn.
I too am very supportive of this item. I think my question really is very similar to what Iman was saying. From the practical standpoint, so is it subject to the instructor's approval for the EW or the admissions office? And it could be in a situation where admissions office say, okay, you provide a proper documentation, but the instructor would say, no, I will not allow that student to have an EW. So those are nuances, I think, when this is implemented, it should be hashed out at the local level.
Thank you.
Are there any additional members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. Thank you. And then we'll get a second reading at our next meeting. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to skip out of line, actually, to the item 4.4, the Board of Governors Energy and Sustainability Award Program. I want to thank the recipients' patience for this. Go right ahead.
So to introduce the item, we want to welcome Carlos Montoya, our Director of Facilities. Carlos, all yours.
Thank you, President Estolano, members of the board, Chancellor Oakley. Today we'll be presenting a number of awards for the Board of Governors Sustainability Prop 39 award projects, as well as a couple of individual awards as well. Now, I think we only have 4 members in the audience today,
Okay.
or 4 recipients. So with that, I'll go ahead and try to keep it a little short, and we will start with the 3 colleges that have a project, an award with a project, and then we will go into the individual award member at the end. And so, as I mentioned, each award winner, each recipient, we will have them come up, accept their award, and we will have them take their photo with leadership. We have the awards here.
Okay, Mr. Montoya, go ahead and start
All right.
talking about them.
All right, so the first category, the winner for the best overall project in the medium district category is Palomar College for the retrofit exterior lighting with LEDs project. Accepting this award for the district is Ron Perez, Assistant Superintendent, Vice President of Finance and Administrative Services.
Great.
The scope of the project involved installing more efficient LED lighting comprehensively over both campuses. The project is estimated to save 463,000 kilowatt hours, resulting in energy cost savings of $74,000 annually. The construction for this project generated 857 hours of journeyman and 582 hours of apprenticeship employment.
Great. Quick question on this. Hasn't Palomar received a similar award in the past on this one?
I'd have
Yeah,
to.
you have, haven't you? Yeah, I remember it. You guys are like really, really good on the sustainability stuff. So congratulations again. Go ahead.
All right.
And we're gonna do photos at the end with all of the winners.
Okay. The second award, the winner for the best retrofit project category is Butte Glen Community College District, Butte College, the main campus. It was a EMS upgrade. Accepting this award for the district is Chris Madden, Energy Manager. Butte College implemented a campus-wide energy management system upgrade project. To achieve operating efficiency, the project is estimated to save 130,000 kilowatt hours and 6,530 therms, resulting in energy cost savings of $111,000 annually. The construction for this project generated over 2,900 hours of journeyman employment.
Wonderful.
All right.
That one's great because at least it appears that the district didn't put any of its own money in. So that's the best way to save $111,000 annually.
All right, and the next project winner is for the best commissioning project category. The winner is Cerritos College for their retro commissioning at Math Science Building Project. Accepting this award for the district is Zurich Lewis, Board President, and Felipe Lopez, Vice President of Business Services.
Great.
The scope of the project involved installing controls that are more reliable and implementing better control sequences on the air handlers, making them more energy efficient. The project is estimated to save 62,000 kilowatt hours and 6,900 therms, resulting in energy cost savings of $25,000 annually. The construction of this project generated over 160 hours of journeyman and 41 hours of apprenticeship employment.
Excellent.
All right. And the individual award for today, which I believe is the final award of recipients that we actually have in the audience today, is the 2017 Sustainability Champion Award. This individual has set an aggressive pace in sustainability at the district since arriving at the campus over 3 years ago. He started his tenure by completing sustainability plans for all 3 colleges in his district. He has taken the lead for the implementation of Proposition 39. He has secured grants in support of solar and energy storage projects and is implementing a new facilities management system to help the district save energy and water. He has also coordinated upgrades to the district's water efficiency and storm water management programs to set the district on pace to achieve zero waste by 2020. This individual has been active in helping his peers and colleagues at other community colleges as well. He founded a group of community college energy and sustainability professionals that work to facilitate energy efficiency and sustainability practices and templates throughout California community colleges. This individual embodies the concept of a sustainability champion, and his energy, dedication, and efforts combine to help move the community college system further along the path to a sustainable future. This year's winner of the 2017 Sustainability Champion Award goes to Joe Fullerton from San Mateo Community College District.
Great. And as Joe's coming up here, one thing that Carlos didn't read was about how he established this fellowship in community college sustainability.
Yeah.
Really impressive. So it was funded with PG&E, and it took 5 recent college graduates, placed them in energy and sustainability roles in 5 barrier districts. That's really bringing it full circle. So gentlemen, and you are all gentlemen today, why don't you come on up, let's take a photo. Thank you so much for your leadership on sustainability. It's going to be essential for our districts. Thank you.
Come on up.
Congratulations. What a great program. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
You're in the middle.
What are we in the middle? Let's break it up a little. Should have worn a red suit. Okay, I think we're good. Thanks, guys. Thanks again. Congratulations. So if y'all haven't read the board report for this award, it's worth reading because what I love about it's not just about the sustainability, but it also documents the number of jobs or hours, journey level, and apprenticeship. So our colleges have really been leaders in making Prop 39 work, not just for the environment, for our economy, and for our students. It's really terrific. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 4.3. Vision for Success Spotlight, Work-Based Learning. Vice Chancellor Vonton Quinlivan is going to talk about workplace learning strategies.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm delighted to bring you this spotlight. Sandy Fried at the Success Center asked us to highlight some promising practices for you. So you'll enjoy this presentation where we're joined by not only the Chancellor's Office colleagues, but also our Foundation for Community Colleges and our colleague from the field, Golden West. Work-based learning has been shown as a strategy to improve student success and completion. It can take form of internships, mentorships, workplace simulations, and apprenticeships that are paired with classroom-based study. And so let's kick off with the slides. Hopefully somebody's loading the slides as I'm talking. Oh dear, we need a password. Next slide. Yes, so if you remember your vision success system-wide goals, there were at least 3 of the metrics, the goals that you had set, which had employability outcomes as well as reducing equity gaps. So let's begin with our first speaker, Nick Escobar.
Good afternoon, Chancellor Oakley, President Estelano, and Vice President Epstein, and members of the board. My name is Nick Esquivel. I'm a specialist with the Workforce and Economic Development Division of the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And as the lead staff overseeing apprenticeship, it's my honor to announce and recognize this being the first day of National Apprenticeship Week. Thank you. National Apprenticeship Week offers leaders in business, labor, education, and other critical partners a chance to express their support for apprenticeship while also giving apprenticeship program sponsors the opportunity to showcase their unique trades, crafts, programs, facilities, and apprentices within their community. This week is of particular importance and significance for the California Community College Chancellor's Office, given that we have currently 79,000 registered apprentices in California, representing 1/6 of all registered apprentices in the nation. The Chancellor's Office directly supports apprenticeship through the direct allocation of over $54 million in both related and supplemental instruction, as well as the California Apprenticeship Initiative, which I oversee. As apprenticeship continues to expand and become a viable and sustainable workforce strategy for employers, educators, and workforce boards, we will continue to see more community college districts and our K-12 LEA partners with California Department of Education seeking to create new apprenticeship programs to meet local needs. The Chancellor's Office currently partners with over 30 community college districts and over 30 K-12 LEAs, supporting hundreds of apprenticeship program sponsors. Next slide, please. One of the primary mechanisms employers and our community college districts are currently utilizing to create new and innovative apprenticeship program opportunities is through the California Apprenticeship Initiative. We're now in our 3rd year of funding for the California Apprenticeship Initiative, having received over $45 million over the past 3 fiscal years to develop new and innovative apprenticeship program opportunities for our California Department of Education LEAs and community college districts. The success of this monumental effort would not be possible without close collaboration and direct involvement from our workforce partners, including the Foundation for California Community Colleges, Division of Apprenticeship Standards, California Labor Agency, the California Workforce Development Board, and the Employment Training Panel. These grant funds have enabled diverse groups of employers, college districts, CD LEAs, as well as local and state governments an opportunity to create apprenticeship opportunities in non-traditional occupations such as nursing, cybersecurity, viticulture, maritime, non-destructive testing, and early child care development. Since rolling out the California Apprenticeship Initiative RFAs in September of 2015, we have now served over 1,200 pre-apprentices, creating a direct career pathway for them into California state registered apprenticeship programs. And we have successfully registered over 800 apprentices through these funds. I will now turn it over to David Gatewood from Golden West College to discuss other forms of work-based learning being implemented at a local level.
Thank you, Nick, and good afternoon. My name is Dave Gatewood. I'm the Dean of Workforce and Economic Development at Golden West College, and I bring fine institution where Chancellor Oakley had part of his beginning. The comments that Vice Chancellor Von Quinlivan mentioned earlier about the spectrum of work-based learning extends far beyond apprenticeships, but apprenticeships are really one of our hallmark pieces. And in Orange County, we have a number of colleges, including San Diego Canyon, that I believe have 11 or 12 registered apprenticeship programs, and they're doing very, very well. But at Golden West, we're a relatively small college, and we don't have any formal apprenticeship programs, but we are committed to providing work-based learning. So one of the things that I've been doing is doing a lot of research for the last 2 years, including with a couple of associations here in California and outside the state. This study came across my desk last summer, and I'm going to share it with you briefly to let you know what is providing an impetus for us at Golden West to make work-based learning opportunities available to all students. This study done by the Student Services Division of the Provost at Oregon State last summer published that 61% of the students in their cohorts, 6-year cohort for universities, just like our 6-year cohorts, 61% graduate and complete on time in a field of study, of chosen study. 83%, however, have student success with one work-based learning, one experiential learning opportunity. It goes up by 22% completion. And with 2 or more, the study found that 91% of all students in the 6-year cohort at Oregon State achieve success in their field and move on in their career path. That's a 30, if we look at the 30% increase for providing experiential learning outside of the classroom. So the commitment that we have at Golden West is to look at how we can open this up to everybody. 125 students per semester in our automotive program, our engineering program, our nursing program is not enough. And in fact, Ed Ray, who's the president at Oregon State, said, knowing this data, it is criminal for Oregon State not to provide opportunities for every student that comes to our college, our university, to have an opportunity to engage in work-based learning. So that's the charge that we're taking on at Golden West. The good news is that we're also working through strong workforce money in the first round to work with our district on providing a platform that works for Orange Coast College, Coastline, and for Golden West. And now with our Strong Workforce 2 funding, thank you, we've been able now to do a regional initiative, all Orange County, to help embrace these values and try to build a platform that supports students and businesses and their access to jobs. The good news is that we've now leveraged that with, at the same time we were working on our Strong Workforce 2 proposal, we received the invitation to participate as a pilot in the Foundation's grant and initiative on work-based learning. So we've taken our Strong Workforce money, level 2, as a county, as a region, and leveraged it against the initiative that's now being coordinated out of Tim Aldinger and the Foundation office. So we're thrilled that we're moving from small to medium to large and integrating all that effort. Perhaps a throwback, but braiding all those funding sources and those opportunities together. And so we're grateful for that. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Tim, and he'll explain how we've taken our county project and leveraged it with the state project.
Thank you, David. Members of the Board of Governors, President Estolano, Chancellor Oakley, thank you for having us. My name is Tim Aldinger. I'm the Director of Workforce Development at the Foundation for California Community Colleges. For a long time, we've known that such great work was happening at local levels, like with David's group. And so we'd had several meetings with Vice Chancellor Von Quinlivan and her staff about how could we look at expanding this. So the Vice Chancellor said, do a little bit of research on these plans from the Strong Workforce Program and tell us what you see. So my colleague Hayden Springer did a deep dive. She read every single one of these plans and did a scan of them about how they mention work-based learning, internships, job placement. And what you see up on the board is, on the whole, quite a few of these colleges are investing real resources into better connecting students to the world of work. And when we saw this information and we reviewed it with the Vice Chancellor, we said, let's see what we can put out there to help expand these types of opportunities to more and more students. And that's what resulted in what we are calling the College Work-Based Learning Planning and Tools Pilot. So really 4 overarching goals of the pilot that you see listed there. One thing we've learned through the past is the importance of, based on the information that David shared from Oregon State, it's important to gather and design a certain shared level of understanding about what we're actually talking about. then to put together a plan and a set of goals for making that happen for as many students as possible. Grow and better design and continue the iterative improvement process that we've started with a number of tools that I'll describe in a moment, and then build that evidence base that's not just in Oregon, but that we can have here. So we were thrilled by the response. Over 34 colleges responded saying, yes, we want to do this. You can see them bracketed here in a certain way. In the upper left are individual responses. Lower left is colleges from the North Far North Consortia. In the center are all the Orange County colleges. Upper right are up through the Central Valley and Motherlode Consortia, and at the bottom right is Ventura County Community College District. All these colleges have committed to this pilot and committed to these 3 tools that are now put together and called the California Community Colleges Career Experience Suite. So they are tools designed to help students move from point A to point B to C to D through their career exploration process. So Here to Career is a mobile app that helps students find out about careers, use their current location to draw relevant industry information, and then find out which community colleges are how far away from them based on their current location, including the number of the types of programs that they have. The Career Experience Portal brokers these types of experiences between educators, employers, students, and intermediary organizations. And Career Catalyst is the employer of record service. It's a longstanding service of the Foundation for California Community College, through which we become the employer of record, take on the workers' comp, and provide payroll and human resources. There's great stories behind these services, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to expand them to more and more colleges. This slide just shows behind each of those logos that you see on the left, and these students are actual stories of students getting an internship, getting a student assistantship, and because of that exposure, that turning into a real job for them. And these stories are coming into us time and again. So I'm thrilled to be working with the Chancellor's Office, with David, and with Nick on the California Apprenticeship Initiative to really provide this for more and more students. And that's what we got.
Yes. Board Member Reed.
I just had a question. This is very interesting to me. Could you just in a few words describe a typical apprentice program? Do I have to have completed so many units? Do I get paid for this? How does it work for the student?
So by definition, California registered apprentices attend 144 class hours a year and 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. Those programs are, those apprentices have an employer of record that they work with through their respective trade or craft, and they're all registered with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards.
Wow. Pretty good.
It's a lot. Yeah. Okay, for other questions? Board Member Shaw? Board Member Volansky?
I was just curious, why isn't Trade Tech involved?
LA Trade Tech is involved. They've been very successful in rounds 1 and 2 of the California Apprenticeship Initiative. They actually have one of the more innovative programs, the early child care programs.
Okay, so they're not on this.
That's part of the California Apprenticeship Initiative. They're involved on Tim's program. I cannot.
Those are internships through the foundation, right?
Yeah, and through the spectrum of work-based learning experiences. They're not an applicant to that, but they've been very involved with the California Apprenticeship Initiative.
I see. Thank you.
Board Member Belansky?
I don't have a question, but I have a request because it would provide more insight for me. But if there's a way to get at the, say, the Foundation Career Experience Suite tools, and also there's one other one. Anyway, those toolkits that are here, it'd be nice to look through those and see those.
Any other comments or questions? Board Member or Vice President Epstein.
I just had a question about the 2,000 hours. That's pretty much a full-time job for a year. And so do they take it straight through? Is that something? And are they taking classes at the same time? How does that work?
As the Division of Apprenticeship Standards is working with an employer with a respective occupation, there are certain instances where they can sometimes make that less than 2,000 hours. For example, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, that's typically a 5-year program. Mm-hmm. They're pretty stringent. They're pretty strict on keeping that those on-the-job training hours and curriculum instruction to that. But there's other of these new and innovative occupations that have never really been apprenticeable in the past. We are looking at maybe that's not the appropriate amount. Maybe we can reduce that amount. And so those are conversations that Vaughn and I are having with the leadership of the California Labor Agency. Another thing we're exploring is other on-the-job training. It's a less rigorous form of registered apprenticeship. So that's something that we're going to be working very closely with DAS to try to implement for those occupations that wouldn't utilize a full registered apprenticeship program.
And are they being? How much are they being paid? What's the? How does it compare to like a full-time worker?
It really varies. For the building trades, it's in the high 20s, low 30s for their apprenticeship program. But depending on the occupation, that can really vary. It can vary.
And if I recall, so it's a combination of classroom hours and actual work on the job training. But if I recall, once you're an apprentice, I believe you're eligible for benefits.
Correct.
So it's more than just the wage. You're actually getting full benefits as a member of the union.
Correct.
Are there any other comments? I'll just say one. Oh, I'm sorry, Iman, I didn't see you. Board Member Dalili.
Very quickly, I'd love to know like a couple tangible examples of the apprenticeship program and some corporations that they work with.
So we just actually, I mentioned non-destructive testing as one of the new and innovative apprenticeship programs that started. NASA and Rocketdyne actually just hired on some of those apprentices. We have SCIU 1000 is working very closely to try to implement more state government apprenticeship programs. We just launched an IT apprenticeship program in state government. They've also developed the LVN to RN program, working with California Department of Corrections and San Joaquin Delta. So local and state governments are really getting behind this effort.
Nick, what's non-destructive testing? Because I was like, what is that?
So it's a way to use really advanced imaging to look at bridge infrastructure, manufacturing, and it does touch into the aerospace ways.
It's quality control.
Correct.
Okay. You don't have to blow it up to check it out.
Aerospace is included.
Board Member Walker Griffin, then Board Member Haynes, Board Member Baum.
So I just have a little question. How does this affect the students' like work-life ratio? So is it like a complete week, or is it like a combination? Because these are a lot of hours, and you know, if I seen this on a piece of paper, I would be kind of intimidated to start the program. Well, yeah, that's my question.
That's where we get as many pre-apprentices to let them know what they can expect when they enter into a state registered apprenticeship program. The California Apprenticeship Initiative is two parts. It's to create new and innovative programs from the ground up, but to also have pre-apprenticeship programs that take students through an experiential learning as to what they can expect when they go through that. So how we've kind of been setting up these RFAs is developing the new and innovative programs the last couple fiscal years, and then a pre-apprenticeship program to create a pipeline into that. That's one way to not only ensure success for the pre-apprentice into the regular apprenticeship program, but also ensure that they stay with it for the 3, 4, 5 year length of the program.
One of the reasons that we're expanding it to a broader terminology of work-based learning is that there are many other activities that help the student explore, become aware of, and prepare. So those include things that could be as short as an informational interview, a job shadow, a presentation or a tour, or an internship that may be 6, 8, 12 weeks long that aren't as heavy of a commitment. So apprenticeship is often referred to as the gold standard of earn and learn, where it is rigorous, but you are getting paid and have a job along the way. We're trying to embed some of these other activities that are not as much of a commitment, but help bring about those career-related outcomes.
Board Member Haynes, followed by Board Member Baum.
So an observation with the more traditional apprenticeship programs, which is there's a limitation of apprentice journeyman because you have to have an employer record who is willing to pay for that time, and it makes that commitment. And so that's a strong sort of limitation on just how many folks can get into some of these very lucrative careers as a result of having that training. But I am interested, and you might not be able to answer this question now, but be interested to know this expansion into new areas of apprenticeship. Sort of what does that look like, and in what kind of fields would that be?
So where we've it's been very diverse in the occupations we've made new headway. When we say non-traditional, we're really meaning anything outside of the building trades.
Yes,
The
right,
building
exactly.
trades represent, over 70% of the
Yes.
roughly 79,000 registered apprenticeship programs. So really, it's those individuals, those community college districts, and the K through 12 LEAs that have put forth the strongest applications that have been funded. Now 3 fiscal years with this funding. So I can get back to you with what occupations we have been able to create out of these funds, but it's been very diverse. We have now 28 new programs that have been created out of these funds.
If we, well, I would like to know where they are, and just an observation, and that is my brothers and the few sisters that are within the building trades. There is a real challenge in terms of getting apprentices of color, and part of that is that commitment, and then the commitment of employers to employ. And so, I'm hoping that that does not follow within the new. When we're looking at sort of these new apprenticeships, that it's broad enough and flexible enough that it will encourage others to participate.
It is. So in the research that I've been doing about that very subject, I didn't hit it on the slide, but at the bottom it said that 33% of the students at Oregon State don't participate at all. The research tells us that the reason why is because it's mostly equity issues. They can't afford the time away from family. They're single parents. They're at a lifetime when they have children at home. I mean, whatever the case may be. And so for us, yes, thank you. For us to address the issue of the value of work-based learning and the entire spectrum or continuum from job shadowing all the way through formal and the new apprenticeship models, we do have to continue to take into consideration how we can address equity issues along the way. Otherwise, clearly, a good portion of our students will be left behind.
Board Member Baum?
What kind of support do you provide employers to actually take in a potential intern? Because especially if I'm a small business, I might not even have an HR department or HR director. And also are there other philanthropic sources? I'm familiar with, obviously, Harbor Freight Tools has seemed to step into this space. Are we getting corporate philanthropy involved in supporting these efforts? So those two things.
Why don't you start?
I'll take the first, only because at Golden West, we are trying to engage those companies. One thing that we're doing is we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Vice President Epstein made a comment about PBS earlier before we broke for lunch about how difficult it was to do a large initiative with the risk of smaller PBS stations worried that they might lose funding if it went to a large portal and we're wrestling with the same issue. The idea is to try to provide businesses with an easy way to access talent throughout, in our case, our county. We don't offer every program at every school. For example, Irvine Valley College has the only optics and photonics program in the state of California. In fact, it's the only optics and photonics programs in the 7 western states. So do we want businesses in San Francisco, Sacramento, Stockton, Fresno, San Diego to find students out of Irvine Valley College? And the answer is we do. So one of the things that we're trying to incentivize the small companies is to make it as easy as possible for them to find talent. The other thing is that we're doing processes online, and we're working on this with the foundation as well, so that the biggest challenge small companies tell me, even big companies, is, so Disney's down in my neighborhood, right? There's a little company called Disneyland. And Disneyland the Disney folks don't want to go to 10 different community colleges and go into our portals to do job announcements. Nor do they want to go into all of them, 114 across the state. They need a single portal that has controls at the local level and sign-ons. And so we're trying to make that easy for them to find talent, which sometimes means we have to move ourselves as an institution out of the way and look at student needs and corporate needs. So that's part of the process that we're engaging with the foundation on.
I'd like to also share that Mike Betts, who heads up the Manufacturing Alliance in Central Valley, approached me at the Economic Summit, and he said that the Manufacturing Alliance has been able to grow from 100 employers when we first went out there on the Strong Workforce Town Halls to now 600 employers who've all come together because of their workforce issues, and they're really, the momentum of the community colleges willing to work on this issue really gave them sail. So their top issue right now is a workers' comp issue associated with internship, in which case I refer the resource of the foundation who has already solved that issue.
Yeah, so in terms of supports, our core support is the Career Catalyst service through which the foundation becomes the employer of record. We pay the student, and then there's a contract with the host employer. So we take on the workers' comp, we process the payroll, we handle the human resources. The design of the career experience portal, which brings together these groups of folks, is trying to do both of these things. It's trying to tap into the ability of industry associations that may be able to help connect a small business that's resource strapped to opportunities in a way that a one person or a small shop can't. And so we now have functionality in there where a person can connect you to things on your behalf, and you just basically say, yes, that sounds good to me. So we're trying to design to meet that reality. Yes, there is philanthropic support. Many times that comes at the local level. We are thrilled that over the last year and a half, more colleges themselves have come to us because of either strong workforce funding or some of the other funding that's come to them, or through a local foundation or company that wants to do this. So Saddleback was working with the NASA, the Jet Propulsion Lab, and they had resources there and were able to put students in. So that's happening, but I think a lot more could happen there as well.
Any other questions or comments from board members? I'm going to have the last word on this. Two things. One, on the apprenticeships, what's wonderful about this in this terrible time of partisanship in this country, it is a bipartisan issue. Both sides love these programs, and there's strong support even at the federal level for apprenticeship issues. So we are really in the sweet spot here at the California Community Colleges, and I commend Vaughn and your team for continuing to help us expand our role. Second, a little digression but related. So I work with a nonprofit. Actually, we created a nonprofit in Los Angeles called the LA Bioscience Hub. One of our programs is Biotech Leaders Academy, and what we identified is that we wanted to make sure that the bioscience sector in Los Angeles grew to look like Los Angeles. So we created an internship program first funded by the Goldhirsch Foundation, which is a family foundation in LA, which sponsored students from East LA Community College. Help them get internships at bioscience companies that typically will only hire unpaid interns who are postdocs from UCLA and USC. We were able to provide them paid internships because the critical issue is they need to get paid if they're at a community college. So this gave them actual industry experience, which they would not otherwise have had but for this program, paid experience. And secondly, we created an entrepreneurship training program. So during the 10 weeks of their internship, they were also learning about how to create their own company. What is venture capital? How do you deal with protecting your intellectual property? We brought in lawyers and VCs and others to talk about the process. The idea being, if you're a community college student, you not only can be a lab tech, but you can own the company. But you would only be able to be exposed to that if you had specialized programming and specialized support. So we just finished our second year. We've had generous support, again, Goldhirsch Foundation and Wells Fargo Community Foundation in Los Angeles. The other part that's been interesting is that, to the point about business themselves needing help, is that some of our biggest supporters have been incubators and startups in LA's bioscience communities who really could use the extra pair of hands, but don't have the bandwidth to figure out how to do an internship. So what the foundation is doing is creating that entry portal. In our second year, we had not only expanded beyond East LA Community College, we had two Pasadena City College, LA Trade Tech, LA City College. And all this to say, creating that portal and that easy kind of internship in a box experience is critical for business as well as for our students. And we're happy to report that along the lines of diversity, we were able to have more than half of our students in this field were women, and almost all were people of color. Our first class, all of that first class has secured full-time paid jobs, or as they've transferred on to four-year universities. So internships work, but you have to pay our students, and that's the hardest nut to crack. So I think philanthropy needs to get behind that, because right now, the way our financial aid works, it does not provide that funding for our students to get that essential work-based learning experience, which will get them into the industries that are going to be growing in the future. It's money. It's all money, Tim. Okay. So with that, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you, Vaughn. This was great. Okay. Moving on, the moment we've all been waiting for, the state and federal legislative update by Vice Chancellor Laura Mattoon. Watch out, Laura. People have like highlighted, tabbed, underlined their report. You're going to get lots of questions.
What I get for providing 25 pages of background. Promise not to do that, except at the end of the year. Good afternoon. I'm Laura Mattoon. I'm Vice Chancellor of Government Relations, and I'm going to provide
Laura, move it a little closer to you. It's hard to hear you a little bit. Thank you.
state and federal update. Beginning on page 69 of the agenda packet. Since our last board meeting, the governor took action on hundreds of bills that had been approved by the legislature in 2017. Actually, over the course of the year, our office tracked 179 bills that had an impact on the community colleges. And by that October 15th signing deadline, the governor had approved a total of 39, including 6 budget bills that directly affected our colleges. I included in your packet a full summary of everything that was signed. The legislative update that you received is similar to one we sent out to our colleges, making them aware of everything that was enacted that will affect them. I just wanted to, on the first page here, I highlighted the bills that we've talked about throughout this year that were very important to our office and to the colleges and the students we served. Our top priority bills were signed by the governor. AB 705, which has the potential for tremendous improvement in student outcomes by ensuring that we use high school performance in the assessment of students and move away from the use of assessment tests. Vice Chancellor Hope is in the process of putting together an implementation team that will establish a timeline for guidance that will go out to our colleges around implementing that bill. And the other bill I'll highlight from this list is AB 19, which establishes the framework for the California College Promise Program. I think it's really important to note that there was no funding provided to support this bill this year. This body requested $25 million to support the Promise initiatives across the state. In next year's budget, we'll continue to work with the governor on that request. And then the only other things I would say on AB 19 is that the bill got a lot of media around it being a free college proposal. We worked very hard with the author to make sure that this wasn't a free college proposal, but instead a proposal to prioritize campus activities that improve student outcomes and close achievement gaps. The bill sets up a number of requirements of what a college has to do to be eligible for any funding that's provided. If a college does all of those things, they'd be eligible for the funding, which they could use to buy out tuition for less needy students, or they could use that money for other things like a book and transportation grant for low-income students. It allows the college to make that decision and gives them goal guidelines around closing achievement gaps and improving outcomes. The only other bill I want to mention that was signed is SB 68. You might recall at our last board meeting, someone came up in public comment and talked about a determination made by our office to not allow adult education for purposes of meeting the AB 540 requirements. This bill actually corrects that problem. It will take effect on January 1, and so that concern that was raised, which we did begin looking at internally, will be addressed in statute in January. On page 70, I did a summary of our various legislative and external stakeholder briefings that we conducted throughout the year, as well as our legislative oversight hearings that our office participated in. Of course, since this went to publication, there were 2 additional hearings added this fall. Tomorrow, actually, Workforce Dean Lynn Shaw and our legal counsel, Jake Knapp, will participate in a hearing by the Select Committee on Women and Inequality, which based on some of the things we heard from today, it's specifically designed to look at gender inequity in specific occupations and what community colleges might do about this. One of the requests they had was for our office to talk about the implicit bias training that we require in faculty hiring processes and whether or not something like that might be applicable to how we recruit into our occupational programs. And then the other hearing that's not listed on here will be later in December, held by the Assembly Committee on Higher Education. It's going to look at the teacher preparation pipeline in the state of California. I'm going to pause there.
While you pause, I just want to say I loved that you did the summary of your advocacy activities. Very interesting, so I hope you keep doing them.
Oh, great.
It's great.
That's really the end of my state update. If anybody has, I wasn't going to go over all of the bills, but certainly answer question if anyone has any.
I think there's some questions. Board Member Haynes. I know Board Member Belansky had some questions on the state. Anybody else? Go ahead, Pam.
So, in your oversight hearings, there was a mention of the master plan, the infamous master plan, and I've been away from the building for a little while. So we're in the midst of transformation, institutional disruption, and doing things differently. Can you speak to whether or not there is a need? I mean, everyone has continued over the years to say there's a need to update the master plan. Is there any more motivation to do it, or are we?
Board
what
Member
are we doing?
Haynes, I think you worked in the Capitol during a number of these revisions.
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping for a different answer.
And yeah. What I would say is that the chair of this select committee has expressed a strong commitment to do what he believes and what we all understand to be the very hard work of really understanding what the master plan says for California and what aspects need to be revised in order to better serve our students. What we also know is that in the absence of a commitment of funding to support public higher education, there's a real challenge there. We talked earlier about what happens in our system when we have funding constraints and what that means for students. So our ability to really revise the master plan and make the changes that are necessary.
So no.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Belansky.
I have a number of questions just for more information as opposed to anything else. But on page 69, for instance, you have AB 1018, that we're going to add homeless and LGBT students to the student equity plans. How will colleges get that data?
LGBT information is collected through the CCC Apply system currently. We've had a little bit of challenge in getting that data back to the colleges outside of the system and back to the colleges so that they could use it for disproportionate impact studies. We're talking to Butte now about how we might facilitate that share of data so that the requirements of this law on this piece can be met. In regards to homeless students, we haven't identified how we'll get that information. We do have a data sharing agreement with the Department of Education that potentially could be used to gather information about student status. We haven't figured out how that might operate or how we would get the information to colleges as of yet, but it is an ongoing conversation internally.
Yeah, because, I mean, it says they have to be there in the plan, so anyway. On page 20, or 70, sorry, where you were talking about the transfer and meeting with University of California, Cal State University, they were trying to talk about how to overcome the challenges. Did they actually articulate what challenges they're trying to address?
UC and CSU and the report highlighted the challenge of insufficient funding at our university partners to take additional students through the transfer process. The other thing that's been highlighted is that despite the fact we have the associate degree for transfer pathway in place, still relatively few students utilize that pathway. And then the final thing that really came up through the meeting was UC, we don't have a clear transfer guarantee articulated pathway to the University of California. Certainly that's a priority of this office, and we hear it's a priority of our university partners.
Because we do have the 21 UC pathways. The problem is with the new Assist Next Gen, it's a mess. All right. It says on page 70 for undocumented students that you're going to put together a handbook. When that comes out, can we get a copy of it?
Of course.
Thank you. in terms of College Promise, which is page 1 of 10, how will it be determined how the funding gets distributed, and when will it be distributed?
The soonest we would have funding available is in the next budget cycle. So next July would be the soonest money would be appropriated for this purpose.
And all colleges will get some?
The college has to meet the 5 outlined requirements in the bill.
So they'll have to submit like a plan or something?
So we're still in the process of determining how that verification process would work. But yes, essentially the college would have to verify that it does these things and then would become eligible for the pot of money.
Okay.
The funding formula will be created by the chancellor's office. There's legislative intent that every college, the funding formula could take into account other factors such as student need after the amount of money necessary to buy out fees for full-time, first-time students.
That's good to know. And then you mentioned the assessment piece already. Do you know when some kind of language or Title V language would be brought to the board?
We've sent out a Q&A that really outlines what the bill specifically requires.
Right.
Vice Chancellor Hope's implementation team meets, I think, next week, Monday.
Oh, okay.
And by that time, we should have an overview of a timeline and then a timeline for regulatory changes that may be required.
And then that'll come.
Yes, those come back to the board.
And again, even on page 4, it mentions the homeless and the LGBT. So again, the same question. On page 5, you talk about foster youth, and it says 10 districts. How will those districts be selected?
The existing KFE districts were selected through a competitive bid process. This allows us to expand that up to 20 districts based in additional money available within the $15 million already appropriated for the program.
So there's 10 already, and it's to add 10 more.
Up to 10, depending on how much additional money there is.
Okay. And on page 9 about cross-enrollment in online education, it says that the California Community College Chancellor's Office will allow students to access online cross-enrollment options simultaneously enroll in both home and teaching colleges. How will that happen?
So this bill put into place the OEI program and the OEI's course exchange.
Okay.
And in order, what the bill really did was allow one district to accept another district's determination of residency. Right now, each district has to check that themselves. Right. But in order to do that, we had to establish the OEI and the course exchange in statute in order to then give that authority.
And then the last one, because I'm always curious how districts will do this. In the page 9, when you're talking about the post-secondary education access to higher education, and it says that the colleges must maintain a list of available pro bono legal services.
This is one of the things that we're hopeful that the grant we received from Irvine to support the handbook can help us do at the local level.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on state? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question on page 85. So SB 478, the public post-secondary education transfer student, we supported it and it was vetoed. Do you know why it was vetoed?
We worked with, there were concerns around cost of the proposal, so we worked with the author's office to put in language that said that the bill would not be essentially mandatory unless funding was provided for that purpose. That helped the bill get out of the Appropriations Committee, but then became a concern when it reached the governor's desk when he would like to see that these types of programs are not upon appropriation, but included in college plans to ensure students receive the degrees that they've actually earned.
If there are no other questions, I have 4. Okay. I'll go fast. Page 3 of 10, under equity, it talks about AB 504 requiring our office to establish a standard methodology for measurement of student equity and disproportionate impact on disaggregated subgroups of the student population. I think it was our last meeting, we had a number of folks come and talk about needing to disaggregate data by subgroups, Asian subgroups. Right. So I'm just curious, I don't know, Chancellor, if you guys have thought through the process of accomplishing this. This seems like a pretty big lift to figure out the methodology, but what were you guys thinking on how to get this done?
So this bill specifically responded to a recommendation from the Legislative Analyst's Office that found that there were different ways that colleges were calculating disproportionate impact. And some of those ways resulted in things like not taking into account when a community might be served by a university. And like one college found that middle-class white students were underserved at the community college without accounting for the fact that many of those students were going to a university partner. And so the LAO recommended that the chancellor's office give more guidance to colleges to create a standard definition of how they should determine disproportionate impact and what they should take into effect.
Got it.
In regards to the issue that came up at the last board meeting, we are having internal conversations about, there's this challenge of how many questions you ask in CCC Apply that doesn't begin to discourage people from completing that application process, and at what points you need to obtain data in order to make best decisions to help students. So this question of, I don't think anybody's challenging whether or not we want to make sure we categorize and look at data surrounding the subgroups in enough detail. It's just a question of how that fits into the overall plans for the CCC Apply system.
But you all will be consulting with some stakeholders on this, right? I mean,
yes,
that would be very important. Next, page 5, facilities, 1157. I'm just really curious what prompted this legislation that would clarify exemption of taxation of property that are not just owned by community colleges, but are used to provide rental housing for employees of one or more public school districts or community college districts. It's very specific. Do you know the story behind it, Laura?
I don't. You've stumped me.
Yeah, it's.
I would have to go back and look at the analysis.
Yeah,
and
there's
see.
clearly a story here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just 2 more. On page 6, Local Agency Public Construction Act, job order contracting, school districts. I don't mean to stump you, but what's the significance of this? Doing job order contracting. It's around procurement.
Yeah, this is one that will require probably additional guidance coming from the Facilities and Finance Division.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like having a bunch of on-call contractors that you can then just issue work orders for.
Yeah,
so that you don't have to go after a procurement every time. If so, that's very cool, because certainly municipalities do this, and it's a great way to get things done and be more efficient.
Well, I can definitely get you more information on these 2 bills.
Okay. And my last one is the most fun. On page 8, Alcoholic Beverage Control Public Schoolhouses, SB 228 Dodd.
Yes.
Removes the prohibition for beer produced by a bonded brewery owned or operated as part of instructional program in brewing. Do we have any breweries in any of our campuses?
You'll recall that we had wine from Napa at our legislative reception. So we do have alcohol-producing programs.
Santa Rosa, but this is about brewing. I guess it's a brewery too? Okay, we'll be going there next year. Good. Thank you. Any other questions on stage, Tom?
I do want to say that Laura was acing her oral exam until Cecilia got a hold of her, and but we'll still give you an A-.
Thank you. All right. Federal update. Great.
Okay.
So just, I won't talk about the things that are in the document. I just wanted to give you an update on the things that we've learned since the creation of this document. I did want to mention some outcomes of our DACA Advocacy Week efforts. You'll recall that the Chancellor, our partners at the Community College League, the Student Senate, and the Faculty Association called on districts to conduct a variety of activities during DACA Advocacy Week. We've learned now that over 700 students have submitted postcards and participated in phone banking activities. 43 of the 72 district boards have approved local resolutions in support of DACA, and 11 colleges successfully obtained meetings with their congressional districts and gave us feedback about those meetings that we can use in our advocacy. I also want to mention that a number of colleges went above and beyond. I'll just highlight a few things. In addition to meeting with Majority Leader McCarthy's office, Porterville College held a rally with over 200 faculty, staff, and students. Ventura College had a Dreamer financial aid workshop, and San Diego College hosted an educational movie screening and also hosted legal resources on campus where students could come and ask questions of immigration attorneys. Obviously, we're all hearing various things in regards to the next congressional step on DACA. Some Republicans have indicated they don't believe that there'll be action before the end of the year. A handful of House Republicans have come forward asking for there be swift action. A number of our California Republicans have signed on to co-sponsor the new version of the DREAM Act. And a number of about 30 Democrats have indicated they won't vote for a continuing federal resolution to fund the budget unless Congress approves the DREAM Act. So I don't know that I can tell you which of those things will happen, but we'll monitor all of them. And then you'll notice I didn't include a year-end summary on the federal side because there's a lot of things that could still play out before the end of the year at the federal level. We'll continue to monitor the federal budget. The current continuing resolution is set to expire on December 8th. In order to pass another one, there'll need to be Democratic votes, and so that may play into DACA negotiations. Earlier this month, House Ways and Means released their proposal for comprehensive tax reform. There's a number of things in there that could negatively impact students around eliminating the tuition assistance exclusion for employers and the student loan interest deduction, as well as the lifetime learning tax credit. The House is expected to vote on the proposal this week. The Senate also released a plan last week which doesn't contain a number of those things I just mentioned. We're in the process of analyzing both proposals, and we expect the Chancellor will make comments on these in the coming days. The Republicans have expressed a desire to move forward on something to send it to the President before Christmas. And then the Higher Education Reauthorization is still in play. The House Education Workforce Committee Chairwoman has indicated a plan to drop a mock-up this fall, which when we were in DC, we learned that fall could mean through the end of December. So we'll see what we get by the end of the year. The chairwoman has indicated a desire to focus on transparency around program outcomes, the student loan simplification, they'd like to see one program, and then closing the skills gap. We're in the process of developing comments that could be provided to the committees as they begin this process. And then the final thing that I'll mention is that just last week I learned that I was appointed as a primary negotiator in the negotiated rulemaking around gainful employment. You may know that the gainful employment rule sets income to debt limitations for programs that are eligible to receive, to participate in the Title IV Federal Student Aid Program. So that will involve 3 meetings in DC over the course of the next 6 months, and the first one is in early December, so I'll keep you informed as we go through that process.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Vice Chancellor Mattoon? Vice President Epstein.
I have a couple. Who appointed you to that commission? How does one get on that commission?
It's the Department of Education makes the appointment, the secretary.
Do you think that came out of the meeting that you had?
It's quite possible.
Yeah. So which California Republicans have embraced the DREAM Act?
Valadeo and Denham.
Any further questions for Vice Chancellor Mattoon? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to board member reports. The way we play this game is you don't have to report, only if you have something significant, and no one will think ill of you if you don't speak for an extended period of time. Okay, so with that, let's start on the left. Let's start with Board Member Walker Green. Or we could just do it by people raising hands. Yeah, let's do it that way. Who's want to go? Okay, Board Member DeLilly.
Very quickly, a big thank you to all the regions, community colleges, and ASOs that hosted me in the past couple months. I look forward to going to the North, Central, and South Bays and regions to meet with more ASOs. Second, the Fall General Assembly for the SSCCC is happening this weekend, and Alex and I will be there. We'll present, and we look forward to meeting everyone and bringing more information back to the board. Thank you.
Anybody else want to go? Board Member Walker Griffin.
Okay, so I attended an SSCCC Board of Directors meeting over in October, and then one in our region over at Merritt College, and then I attended a Chabot Las Positas Community College District meeting, and the IEPI Guided Pathways Conference, and a couple of other events, but those are the more notable ones.
Thank you. Vice President Epstein.
Yeah, I went to a couple of events, the California Economic Summit, where I want to note that our Executive Vice Chancellor, Vontan Quinlivan, was a total rock star, dominated the conference and was given the award, whatever the award is. It was like, the coolest person there award, and very impressive. It was great, and congratulations for that. I also went to a PPIC event with Lieutenant Governor Newsom, where he called out our chancellor, who happened to be sitting in the first row, and a number of times pointing out how much he was looking forward to working with us when he wins and supporting us. And just I do want to say I did my road show since the last meeting. I went to 11 colleges, and I just wanted to thank all of those colleges. I wanted to call them out here: CCSF, Peralta, Laney, Fresno, Clovis, and Reedley, San Diego, and Mesa, Glendale, Bakersfield, and El Camino, and they all treated me very well, and I appreciate that. I wanted to put that on the record.
Really impressive. Board Member Belansky?
Just to call out some people, two again and one that hasn't been yet. Just to say congratulations again to Executive Vice Chancellor Von Quinlivan for winning the California Steward Leader Award.
There we go.
Very, very impressive. And for what Vice Chancellor Laura Mattoon said about being appointed to the Department of Education Committee. And I'd like to say thank you to President Estolano for coming to the Academic Senate Fall Plenary and giving the keynote address. Thank you. And to a number of people here at the Chancellor's Office that came to the Strengthening Student Success Conference, as well as the Fall Plenary at the Academic Senate to make presentations. Thank you.
Great. Board Member Fawn, followed by Board Member Shaw. Anybody else?
Yeah, I too attended the plenary last week, and also a few weeks before that, the CIO conference where our chancellor also spoke. And I think through the general sessions, the formal workshops, and the informal side chats with faculty and those in the field, particularly the instructional side of the house, I guess if I can use an analogy, they're riding this big wave right now. They're surfers and they're riding this big wave, but they don't know where this wave would take them or how they're going to land. So in terms of the velocity of things that the system is thrown out into the 114 colleges, as well as the speed in which things are being developed or being implemented, there is some concern of that, have we gotten our voice in? Is the process observed? Is the consultation actually there? So I'm not sure if I'm kind of the eyes and ears of the system, but I will continue to go to these conferences and listen to what the folks in the field are saying, the big picture of what we're experiencing as a system in the days ahead. So those are my comments.
Board Member Shaw, followed by Conway, followed by Haynes.
I just had an opportunity to, just a few days ago, to attend the Emoja Conference. And actually, this is the third one I've attended. I went to, I think, Oakland and LA, and now back here in Sacramento. And it was the largest one they've had, over 12,000, pardon me, 1,200. I'm used to big numbers, but 1,200 students. And I have to say, it was heartwarming, because if you go into the workshops and hear the stories and the struggles and the challenges these students have endured, but they're still, trying to move forward. It just was extraordinary time. And this organization, most of you know, started out, has worked primarily as volunteers, and now they just got funding of late. So kudos to everybody involved in that conference, and in particular the students.
Board Member Conway.
And I'm not doing this just to make sure I get on the record of actually being here today. And I missed you all, and I'm glad to be back. My foot is so much better. It's not 100%, but it's, probably perfect for putting it in my mouth. Anyway, which I've been known to do on occasion. I did attend the College of Sequoia's Hall of Fame dinner. It's an annual event that they have where they honor alumni, and it's very, very nice, and I felt privileged to go. And I'm also very excited to meet our newest board member. He and I share a birthday, about 60 years apart, but we're not counting that. Well, maybe it's only 50. I don't know. It's one of those numbers. Anyway, I'm happy. My great-grandson, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Board Member Haynes.
So I too attended the Umoja conference. 1,200 students. They were engaged. It was a wonderful program. students were at the forefront of what was going on. Just a public observation, and it's not just pulling out Umoja. We have a number of programs. There's a STEM initiative. There's EOPS. There's Bridge. There's Puente. There's Mesa. These are all wonderful programs. And we need to keep them, and we need to embrace them. But I just want to, that's a starting point. We got to figure out really how we get to the majority of our students. And this is one avenue. It is not the only avenue. And so, much of this ultimately will have to be predicated upon to what extent our students are successful at the end of these very different kinds of initiatives, and to what extent we can evaluate them and see what we're doing right, and then to expand and do some things better. I also wanted to speak to AB 702. What I've been hearing, at least on our campuses in Los Rios, is there are a number of staff and faculty that haven't read the bill. So they've gotten the bullet points, and the bullet points are leading, and there's anxiety. Anytime when there's change and disruption, there is anxiety about what that looks like. I've been there, so I understand that piece. But to the extent that we can work in partnership with faculty to push down what this bill and other bills that are here that we're going to be working on, push down so that the field, i.e., those faculty members that are teaching these courses, that are getting these students, really understand what we're trying to do. There's still going to be anxiety, but there's some misinformation based on some of what people are assuming about the bullet points. So with that said, I'm glad I was one of those people who was visibly in support of AB 19. I stayed away from the issue around whether it was free or not, because I personally have a sort of slight problem with that part. But again, the piece that is so compelling is that if these are wraparound dollars for students who need them, and our students indeed do need them, then we need to sort of embrace and figure out how to do that. And if we get money to do that, that would be great. And then finally, I really want to, I might not have said this piece earlier, the OEI and then the flow or projects or initiatives, however we want to call those, are just so critical. And when I looked at some of the data that was given that was embedded within the report, especially around OEI, I am hopeful. There was a small snippet that talked about adult learners who are African American, and the rate of success, which is that's a compelling number for me. It gives me I can hold on to that, and I realize that it's at the very beginning of looking at these numbers, and we do have to scale, but those are hopeful signs that we're moving in the right direction, as well as I just want to put an exclamation point around all of those 2 million plus folks out in California, many of them folks of color, and those who have where community college didn't seem for them when they started. These are potential online adult learners, and that data that's coming in says that they're using it and they're being successful, and we need to embrace that in a way to make certain that they are being served in California. We will not have a California that anybody cares about if we do not make certain that we embrace access wherever that access comes into our system.
Thank you, Board Member Haynes. Board Member Avalos?
Yep. So just quickly, I attended the EOPNS conference this past week in Newport Beach, or this past week. It was my fourth conference, and like all other conferences, they're very successful and great opportunity to reconnect with folks. Over 600 folks who are part of EOPNS were there, which is pretty impressive. Also, I went to a civic engagement conference that was put on by the College of the Canyons, also sponsored by the foundation. It was an opportunity again to talk about civic engagement on the community college campuses, and what are we doing about that, and how we engage students more. So those are two big conferences that I attended over the past 2 months or so.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or reports folks want to make? Oh, Board Member Baum.
Just really quickly, first off, congratulations to our president and vice president on their unanimous reelection. And number two was just a big thank you and a deep sense of appreciation to all of those who rallied to support the community of Santa Rosa. I know the chancellor and the team led the effort to try to do what we could for both the students and the employees and other members of the community that were affected by the fires. And so it just showed how this system is so critical and can be helpful, but it's also impacted a number of folks within our system, and I didn't want that to go unnoticed. I appreciate the regular updates we've been getting from the chancellor and the team on that.
Okay, let's move on to public comment. Vice President Epstein.
Julie Bruno.
Good afternoon, President Estolano, board members, Chancellor Oakley. Again, I'm going to keep this really short. I just wanted to thank President Estolano for coming to our plenary session and giving the keynote. Faculty really enjoyed hearing from her, and there was really good conversations. I also like to thank Board Member Belansky and Member Fan for also attending, as well as our Chancellor's Office colleagues who came and did some presentations with our faculty and our executive committee. So it was really successful. We passed over 40 resolutions on all different topics, including Veterans Resource Centers, DACA students, guided pathways, non-credit instruction, low-cost course materials, and shared governance, just to name a few. The link is up on our website, so if you'd like to take a look, and I'm always happy to send that out to you all. We're doing some really good work around quantitative reasoning. We're pulling faculty together to sort of have these conversations about what that should look like in light of the information that CSU has presented to us, and so that work will continue. Thank you very much for approving our CID grant today. We're really thrilled to have that. And Member Baum, I'm always thoughtful that now the money goes directly to the Senate and doesn't have to go through a district. So we've increased our efficiency right there. So we're really thrilled. Also, I've left for you the Senate rostrum, our latest, with articles from our executive committee and others, just to kind of keep a check-in on our work. So I think that's it. Thank you so much. We won't see you before Thanksgiving, so have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Board Member Reed.
Valerie spoke to the issue of the students that were that are hungry, and the gentleman today really hit on a note. And I'd like to request that the Chancellor, at some future date, we might have a presentation on what we're doing or what we might be able to do in that area going forward.
Great. Board Member Walker Griffin.
So, in regards to the recent fires that have plagued Northern California and actually all over the state, unfortunately, I do know of one student that passed away. She was a member of my community college district. From my understanding, she was in a wheelchair and she tried to help her father out, but unfortunately, she got trapped in her house and tragically passed away. And if we could, I would like to have a moment of silence in her memory. Thank you. I do appreciate that. She was a member, she was a student at Diablo Valley College in the satellite campus over in San Ramon, but her father lived in Santa Rosa, which is about a little over an hour away from there. But thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. If there are no other further comments, this meeting is adjourned. See you all in January.